how do we get Scott to watch it? Do we just
I
tell him
don't know.
let's tell him everyone's hot. That'll work, right? Because everyone's hot. So watch it, Galloway. Do it.
It is on.
Hi, everyone. Today we're going up, 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 and by that I mean we're giving you a much-needed break from the doom and gloom of the news to talk about Netflix's most popular movie ever, K-Pop Demon Hunters. I'm joined today by the film's two directors, Chris Appelhans and Maggie Kang, to take us behind the scenes of the Oscar-nominated movie. My kids watch K-Pop Demon Hunters and listen to its music so much I don't even want to tell you. Every parent knows this, but it's also a movie for adults. It's a movie for everyone, and that's why it's become such a global phenomenon. It's a wonderful story, and it's about the struggle to be who you are. And if you're a gay person, an immigrant, anyone who is an other, you will get what this movie is. It's aspirational, it's sad, it's funny, it's everything, and I recommend it to everyone to watch. And if you want the inside scoop on how this film got made and just can't keep the songs out of your head, and you shouldn't, they're great songs, keep watching. I want to start off saying I am a huge fan, but mostly my children are. I have 4 kids, but my younger kids, my older kids like it, but it's really a phenomena of my young kids right now, which I got it. So I'm bringing props for you just to see. My kid's favorite, my daughter's favorite is Zoe. So she does that,
Nice.
but then she does her own, which is my
Yes, the
cousin
trio.
is Zoe too, and then there's Zoe on the end. She does that little Zoe a lot.
That's so cute.
And my
How old
son's
is she, Kara?
what?
How old is she?
She's 6,
Oh,
and then
perfect.
my 4-year-old
Wow.
loves
Wow.
Rumi. So my daughter Clara did this one too, but my 4-year-old's his favorite. I mean, she draws Zoe and Rumi. Sorry, Mira, but that's what happens. I don't have 3 kids. So I just want to say I spent a lot of time. It's gotten rid of Frozen, which is, I thank you so much for that. But Chris Appelhans and Maggie Kang, thank you for coming on. And congratulations on the film's 2 Oscar nominations to start with.
Thank you.
It's been a wild few months for the 2 of you, and you're about to cap it all off by heading, as I said, to the Academy Awards next month. I know you've talked about this, but reflect on the film's monster success. There's no way anybody expected this. I've talked to people from Netflix. They certainly didn't. But first Maggie and then Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really predict anything like this. But I do think that we were very confident with what we had. We really loved the film when we finished it and loved it all the way through from the very beginning, and really knew that really, had high hopes that an audience would find it, and if they did, that they would love it just as much as we did, and luckily it did. And I think we're still, as a business, trying to figure out how this new especially this new generation of audience is absorbing content, and to have a movie like this land on a platform like Netflix, where you're able to go global instantly. You're in
Right,
like
exactly.
98 countries. It's dubbed in like 40 something languages, and the power of that is kind of undeniable, and there's nothing really like it. And then this movie just kind of was carried by the fans. They found it immediately, and it wasn't a large group of people that found it, but when they found it, the passion for it was just so intense. They were creating content for Instagram and socials almost immediately. I remember watching it on midnight, and it was just as I was watching, there was content being created. So there's like this power of this generation that is content creators that is able to spread the word and
Spread the word. It's not that.
Yeah.
They actually are taking your content and then working with it. So
Yes.
go ahead, Chris, next.
No, I mean those are the big epiphanies. I think that the fact that I guess we really wanted to make something new, and I think again, it's audiences telling business like we would like that. We would like new stuff. We mashed up influences from many, from manga and anime and K-dramas and Kurosawa, and really tried to make something that we wanted to see in animation that hadn't been seen before. And I think it's just become the recurring theme of all audiences that they are hungry for that. They're so hungry for original things, and I think
Right,
that
original.
dovetails with the power of word of mouth. Like, it's never been more important now. I think it's really the marketing of word of mouth is as powerful as any formal campaign, and you'd see that on TikTok. That was really interesting. Like,
Mhm,
there'd be a fan-made homage video, about one of the through lines in the story, and it would
mhm.
have a trillion likes and a bunch of great comments, and then there would be one even put out by Netflix, like a nicely done
Mm.
version. But just the fact that it was coming from sort of the corporate account, there was a different relationship to it. There was more skepticism. When it's
Sure.
made by a fan saying,
Yeah.
"This is why I love this movie, and this is me putting my own time and energy into it," that has its own form of appeal in this age of marketing saturation that I think is kind of
Right.
amazing.
So direct to streaming was a good thing for you as opposed to a theatrical release first, Maggie?
I think so. The also when we got the green light, it was during COVID times, so it was everything was unsure anyway, and, the idea of theaters. So, especially for me, being a first-time director, being able to create something and get something made that's original in this climate where originals are not really made, it was just, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's just make a movie." I was just grateful for that opportunity. Um, and I I think our movie was different because it came out, it struck, a success with an audience, and then we had a theatrical later
Mhm.
for a weekend. So it's interesting. I think we're trying to figure out, like, there's different ways that different films, need, like, just, where they land. I think every project is different, and maybe that's what we're learning as an industry, like,
Yeah, I
how
do
to get
think
these things
people
out
the
there.
reason it worked so well in the theaters later is because people watched it, loved it, and then wanted to experience it
Yes.
with people,
It was a
right?
totally
Yeah,
different experience. It was like
collectively.
going to a concert and
Mhm,
experiencing the movie like how music is experienced in the film,
mhm.
which was I mean, I can't imagine going to a theater and watching my film with an audience who hasn't seen it.
Right, right,
I feel like that would
exactly.
be terrifying. But this was a great experience because 'cause you're like, "Oh, wow, people love this," and
Mhm.
it's community, and they're going there to enjoy it on a
And
different
they wanna
level,
meet
so
each other.
yes.
We
Yeah,
had a
it's
similar
it's
experience with a Pivot tour. They could care less about us. They wanted to see each other and talk about us, which was great. But go ahead, Chris.
no, it's like I think what I realized at the theatrical showings was, like, there is I think, a desire, and I know I'm an agnostic person. I don't go to church. I never did. There's a real desire, I think, culturally for collective experiences, which concerts are and stories are. It's a kind of reason to gather and celebrate, especially with the story too. There's often a value statement that you're sharing in and celebrating, and I feel like that it occurred to me being in the theater and enjoying the movie in this kind of, almost euphoric state that that's something that I think we're really drawn to as humans, and at least for me as a sort of non-church going person, I was like, I really love this feeling of being connected by a story and connected by music, and
Mhm.
I think it's there's a shortage of it in our present day, and I wonder if that's part of why movies mean as much as they do to us, and
Or they
we seek
can,
them out,
right?
or they
Mhm.
can,
Or
yeah.
they can. So, for people who don't know the broad plot, that you have this K-pop girl group Huntrix. It's 3 members at this point, Rumi, Zoe, and Mira. They're the latest demon hunting trio in a long line of them. But the small spoiler alert, Rumi is part demon herself, and her friends don't know. Um, Through that, you're exploring themes of self-acceptance and overcoming cultural pressures. Uh, these are really heavy themes, so the movie doesn't feel heavy. Let's talk about striking that balance because,
Mm.
as let me tell you, as a gay person, I heard gay. Like I think anyone who feels other has that feeling of fear of being found. I'd love each of you to talk about that. Maggie first.
Mm. Yeah, we talked about that kind of story a lot, and so many different things. We talked a lot about addiction. We talked a lot about j- yes, being like kind of the other, like immigrant story. And it, we wanted to challenge ourselves with the storytelling. The way that Chris and I bonded as storytellers first is through our love of director Bong Joon-ho's films, especially The Host. In that film, I remember the first time watching it, I was blown away at how he was able to just juggle different tones. There's a scene where the family is grieving the loss of a child and they're crying, and and then the next moment, it just becomes this, like, physical comedy thing where
Mhm.
one brother, like, jump kicks another one, and they fall to the ground, and they're, like, crying and just in this deep sorrow, but it's very comical, and
Right.
I had no idea that that could work, but it did,
Mhm.
and so and director, Park Chan-wook does that as well in his films, and so we wanted to try that with this, and especially because we were dealing with very dark themes, and one of the scenes that we really like, and it actually came later because we felt like, and this is the couch, couch, couch scene very early in the movie, and we were about to get into Rumi's backstory of being a part demon and this kind of burden that she has, this dark secret that she's keeping from her friends, and you know because we were going right into that, we wanted to kind of show the audience, like, what is Rumi fighting for? What do we want for Rumi? And it's this kind of silliness, this being able to be silly with her girlfriends and just that intimacy. That's the thing that she really, really wants and what we want for her. And so we added the scene where Rumi is coming up from the couch with a silly face and offering up the costumes for the new single, and that was our way of kind of playing with tone. Let's keep it light, but also be dramatic on the other side. And I'm a true believer of, like, I love comedy, but I also feel like the more comic you can go on one end, the more dramatic you can go on the other end. So
Absolutely.
we've always tried to strike that balance in this
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that speaks very much to my favorite quote about movies, which is Truffaut saying a great movie is truth and spectacle. And
Mhm.
I feel like that was part of our strategy, really, is the words K-pop Demon Hunters, they like obviously invite the spectacle is so obvious
Mhm.
and sort of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And you're doing that and you're just going 1,000 miles an hour and you're entertaining and being funny and glamorous. And then hopefully planting seeds for the audience that are going to pay off later that don't feel like homework and don't feel,
Yeah.
pedantic or anything.
Yeah.
I grew up um, in a small town in Idaho, and I had several friends who I vaguely, to keep it vague, they were in the closet and they were part of Mormon families, and they went through a very similar experience to Rumi in terms of, um, you know, basically realizing fundamentally they had to survive the experience of being told that the way you are is not worthy of love. That's such a incredible thing, and it was odd because they had loving parents in a lot of ways, but that love was at the very end of the day, it was conditional, and so I watched them in their early 20s, they both went right up to the edge, just like Rumi does, of thinking the best thing would be not to exist anymore, and then, I think what I really admire about them is that they they came to terms with the fact that they were never gonna get the love they deserved there, and they went out and found it somewhere else, and
Yeah.
that's
That's
that's what
often
Rumi
the case.
does.
And
Rumi
then everyone goes to
finds
the
the
Book of
girls.
Mormon and laughs about it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
Mormons go to that show, just so you know.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so the song "Golden" is as much of a success as the film itself. It's up for Best Original Song in the upcoming Academy Awards. Maggie, in an interview last fall, you said "Golden" was the last track you figured out, and it was very hard to write. You didn't know what the song needed to be to serve the story. So, talk about what was the key to unlock it, and how did you figure it out?
Yeah. Through the writing process and just developing the film, we got a lot of feedback from, especially from the studio, that, we need to know more about the characters in order
Hmm.
to really be on the journey with them.
Hmm.
And it's funny because we were like, oh, well, we know, but we realized, well, the audience doesn't know. And so we need to, like, give them a little bit of each of their origin story, where they come from. And, because the movie is a non-origin story, and we were very adamant about telling a non-origin story, we had to kind of feed the audience a little bit of information here and there through flashbacks and such. And because the first act is so tight, we really couldn't find places to do that. We tried scenes where the girls meet on the island to train, like, as youngsters, and the movie just kept rejecting it. It just didn't want those scenes. And so, um, writing the Golden Song, I think what really kind of unlocked it for us is, eh, we also we were very, we were not convinced that we were making a musical,
Mhm. Yeah.
for a very long time, but
Right. Right.
finally realized through our executive music producer, Ian Eisendrath, who comes from, working on Broadway shows and has a very great, like, just writing sense through music,
Mhm.
and he's like, "You guys need an I Want song." Every
Yes.
Disney princess movie has one,
Yeah.
and we realized that we did, and so Golden became that. But then we realized that through the song, we could also just sprinkle in a little bit of the backstory of the girls, and so,
Rather
and
than
with
show it, right?
rather than
Rather
show it,
rather
yes.
than have a scene, which you have. Did you make
Yes.
those?
We did cuts with storyboards, but we never fully produced them. Um, and and so we would make these with every song, we would make these, like, very long, very dry, just, literal, documents for our songwriters, and we would write, with Mira, she comes from a family, a lot of, educated, like, an educated background, but she's kind of this black sheep of the family. She's different from the rest of them. She's wild, she's spontaneous, she can be aggressive, and that that kind of paragraph is pared down to, what is it? I was wild. I
Mhm.
I was
forget
a
what the
problem child
yeah,
because I
problem
got too
child,
wild.
got too wild, and now that's how I'm getting paid.
Right.
And it becomes this pop lyric that is universal, but also services the story and the characters that
Right.
are in
So
the
you're doing
film.
the story in it.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, during a Reddit AMA, you said Golden had some surprising influences, including, in addition to K-pop, it was also inspired by Juicy by Notorious
Yes.
B.I.G. and Forever by Drake, Eminem, and others. Talk about incorporating I think possibly because people could see this as a children's movie. It absolutely is, but it isn't at the same time.
Yeah, I think, we certainly never thought about it as a children's movie,
Hmm.
and we sort of wanted to be as dense and smart as a movie that we would wanna watch,
Hmm.
but I think that yeah, the musical influences were a real joy to find because part of the thing that hadn't been done before is what Maggie described, which is this blend of, like, very tight and efficient storytelling within the song, but a song that was truly a pop song, not like because there have been some Broadway songs with pop stylings, but they're still essentially Broadway, and so, like, Juicy or there was a Drake collab, called Forever, which is essentially I started as a nobody, and I worked my way to the top, and I'm still climbing. And that's such a in the case of all those, um, songs, like with Biggie, it's like it's very specific. He's, like, literally talking about Christmas missed us, like, it really describes a person who is in a difficult place in life, and it encapsulates their struggle, and then yet it's so universal that, like, people all over the world connected to that. So we really took that as an archetype of, like, this is K-pop, this is about these fantasy girl characters, but really it's the same archetype of, like, here are these 3 young women, and the pivotal emotional thing that that song helps you understand about that is they don't really have anywhere else to go but each other. They don't have happy families and safe places, and so their journey in this movie to figure out how to find themselves and be the best versions of they only have each other, and that really helps you buy in at the same time that, as far as you can tell, you're just hearing, like, a fun pop song. So
Yeah, it
it was
absolutely
that
doesn't sound
mashup that was
it
so
doesn't sound
fun.
like a Disney movie, trust me, it's not. I've watched thousands of them. Let's talk a little bit about the Korean influences in the film. I just got back from Korea, I was there 10 days, and
Oh.
I have to say it's not as big. I asked Koreans, I'm like, "What do you think of that movie?" They're like, "What mo" and I was like, "No, no, no, this is, like, the biggest thing across the entire world," which was interesting, but there's enormous Korean influences here. Maggie, you came up with the idea for K-Pop Demon Hunters, also your director debut. You said when you were pitching the film, you wanted to, quote, "make it as Korean as possible in order to showcase the culture from ancient shamanism to modern K-pop," and a lot to pack into movie. Talk about translating your Korean heritage into an animated kids film,
Mm,
and where did you start? A lot of people are under the impression it's from Korea, just so
mm,
you know? And I'm like, "No, no, no, it's
mhm.
not. It's Canadian American, essentially, Canadian American."
Yes, yes. Well, I've always just wanted to work on a culturally Korean movie, ever since I started in this business, and I was kind of waiting around for one, and I never came across one, and now and when I once I got into the position of being able to kind of craft it and lead something like this, I decided, well, shoot, I'll do it, and so that's where I started and landed on kind of demonology and the idea of demon hunters, and K-pop was another Korean element that I could add in, and it felt really exciting, and I had no idea where it was going to take me, and I was trying to figure out kind of the concept of it, and then when Chris joined, he suggested, you know. Rooting the mythology into this mudang, and mudang is kind of, I don't know, they're kind of revered, seen as like gypsies and outsiders. And so initially, when we pitched the idea to a lot of Korean people, they were a little like, whoa, that's a little strange. And so, uh, and so I was a little reluctant to go for it, but it just felt like the most perfect idea to root the mythology into something that existed in culture. So just decided to go for it. And for me, that decision really opened up just a possibility of being, an opportunity to show the different eras of Korea, how music evolved through the ages, and through that, the different fashions, and just getting very culturally specific about the different eras and everything. And that's what really told me, like, oh, this could be the most Korean thing ever. And so through every aspect, we try to infuse Korean culture, and it's like if you were making a sci-fi movie, everything is kind of seen through a sci-fi lens. And we just did that through a Korean lens. And so when they were having dinner, the dinner table would be filled with Korean food, the way the place setting is, and or a building, or any sort of location, even the costumes, the way their makeup is done. We looked at a lot of Korean specific makeup tutorials
Yeah,
because it's very
yeah,
different and
it
specific.
is.
So
Well,
that's
you nailed it, I have to
oh, thank
say,
you.
especially at the concerts, right? I
Mm,
was I was in Korea, there was a concert happening, and I was like, "This looks like
Mm.
K-pop Demon Hunters." It was I was walking through the crowd, and even the
Mm.
snacks. I
mhm.
thought you did an
Mm.
excellent job on the snacks, by the way, that they were
Thank
having.
you.
Now, Chris, I don't know if you know this, but you're a white American. You're married to a Korean American author,
Yeah.
but the only other film you directed is Wish Dragon. It's set in China. You actually lived there a little bit during the development. You came onto the project a little more than a year into development. What did you see your role was of telling this story?
Yeah, it's tied to 2 big ingredients that I fell in love with instantly, and I was in the middle. I had Wish Dragon had done really well on Netflix, and so Sony was like, "Let's make another movie together," and I was really excited and had all my ideas, and then, my producer introduced me to Maggie, and we had lunch, and, like, literally 10 minutes into lunch I was playing very cool,
Hmm.
but
Did it work,
inside I was like
Maggie? Did it?
Yeah, too cool. I didn't think he was interested at all.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and inside, every other idea for a movie that I had been cooking up just flew out of my mind, and this was
Hmm.
all I could think about, and I think it's based in 2 things. One, I'm a musician my whole life. I've been writing music and songs probably longer than I've been writing screenplays, so the sort of proposal that I floated to Maggie was like, "What could this movie, among all the things that it's about, be about the power of music and the way that transcends all our usual barriers and connects us in a way that just even words and logic can't. And Maggie's like a true, like an OG K-pop fan, so she's been singing karaoke to this stuff for 35 years. So she has a lived experience of that, and I think we bonded really fast on that mission of like, let's find a way to dramatize and make music into a kind of superpower in its own way. And the second one was my wife, who's a Korean American novelist, and she's one of the first. Her name is Maureen Gu. She's one of the first Korean American writers to kind of break out in young adult books.
Mhm.
And she's a very funny, smart, food-loving, angry, vengeful, fashion-obsessed person. And when I was having lunch with Maggie, Maggie was like, "I wanna make a film about these girls that are angry and funny and thirsty and food-loving and fashion-obsessed," and I said, "I know it's really weird coming from this like, the whitest person you could imagine, but
Mhm.
I know exactly what you mean, and I wanna I wanna help you, bring those characters to life because 'cause I'm married to one,
Mhm.
and she's so much more interesting than the characters I see in animation, and
Mhm.
so I think that those 2 things really bonded us, and the movie's so much, the result of those 2 things trying to reconcile and work together and balance, and I think
Wait,
that's
Maggie, if you
just
thought he wasn't interested, how'd the next step go?
well, I think I was I tried to play cool, but then I
Like,
immediately called everyone as like, "Please, please, 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 I wanna do this
I think
movie."
you played it cool, for most of the hour, and then at the end,
Yeah,
he showed excitement, so I was
He
like, "Oh,
revealed
okay."
his demon
Yeah.
ways.
yeah.
All right. So every episode we get a question from an outside expert. You're going to have to indulge me. This one is a special one.
Uh, I'm Solomon's Swisher cat, and I'm 4 years
Oh.
old. Is the magpie and the blue tiger real?
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Oh my
well,
gosh.
Oh.
Maggie, for people who haven't seen the movie, explain what he's referring to because those were fantastic characters to add. And you can answer the question, but talk about
Yes.
their significance.
Yes. Well, we always wanted a tiger in the movie because the tiger is the national animal of Korea. And we didn't really want to just slap on an animal sidekick character. We wanted it to have a role. And we realized that we needed a way for Jinu and Rumi to communicate with each other, send notes. And it felt a little weird for Jinu being 400 years old to just send a text message on a phone. So one of our production designers, Helen Chen, did this beautiful painting of Jinu with this cat, like a statue that was turning into a real tiger,
Hmm.
and that automatically made him more attractive because he's a man with a pet, the cat, and we're all cat people on this crew,
Hmm.
and so we decided to make him like this mailbox, this messenger with sending notes to each other, and so that's how Derpy the tiger was born, and the reason why we call him Derpy is because we would, as a crew, just send these kind of illustrations of tigers to each other, and they were all kind of wall-eyed and wonky-eyed, and we used to send them to each other and say, like, "Look at this derpy one," or "This one's more derpy," and so that name just kind of stuck. And in traditional illustration, the tiger is meant to be like to represent the wealthy or the politicians, and so that's why they were wall-eyed and wonky. And the magpie is the commoner that's always pecking at his head, and so we needed the magpie as well. And I think we just gave it three eyes because it just made it more demon like.
Yes, more
And
demon. That's what it
mhm,
was initially. My kids, and it's scary, but then it's
mhm,
not. Then it's
yes,
adorable, which is
yes,
interesting because the tiger has very sharp teeth and looks insane, and the
mhm.
magpie with the three eyes is fucked up in some way. But then it seems to work, and it's interesting because there are always sidekick animals in
Yes.
movies. This took it to another level. I thought it
Oh,
was
thank
really,
you.
and that's why I think he thinks it's real, and wants one. The animation style also feels very unique. It's a mix of 3D CGI animation style used in big Western studios like Disney Pixar, but then there are these bursts of very clearly steeped in 2D Eastern anime style. Chris, talk about blending these two distinct styles, and what were the conversations you two had when it came to deciding how to mix them? Because
Yeah.
they do mix. You can see it
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, like, Bong Joon-ho. It goes back there's actually a real shared DNA, I think, between, like, the tonal range of his filmmaking from comedy and horror and deep emotion all right next to each other. K-dramas, Korean dramas are excellent at doing similar. Um, there's a famous early anime called Cowboy Bebop, which is a
Hmm.
great, very much not for kids kind of space noir series. And it has these bounty hunters that are really, really cool and violent, but also really goofy and weird and silly. And those were, and then Sailor Moon, which is another early anime, which had
Hmm.
these aspirational sort of superhero princesses that are also really silly. So in all of that was this shared DNA of like wanting our characters to be able to go through some real genuine, um, deep, heavy stuff and also be really goofy and expressive in ways that we felt like were unique to those influences. And so it really became really who the characters were and the tone we wanted to achieve with them drove all the decisions from designing the characters to the animation style to even how we chose to light them. So it was almost like from the inside out, the visual style is a product of
Hmm.
the range we wanted out of the characters, if that makes sense.
Let's talk about the business side of making the film. Maggie, one of the challenges you say you faced is when you were pitching the film, you didn't have any comparables to point to get studios on board. Talk about pitching the film and how you convince people to stick with your vision at a time when the industry is facing, as you noted, very in a small way, a ton of pressure to do guaranteed hits. I did an interview with Ted Sarandos, who runs Netflix, a couple of years ago, where he said there's only going to be big hits or very little movies, nothing in the middle. Right? He literally said you're all done.
Yeah. So the movie was literally pitched as a K-pop girl group who moonlight as demon hunters. That was the pitch. Um, and then I think about 6 months into development, Christine Belson, the president of Sony Pictures Animation, she just has very good taste and really leads Sony in a way where they want to encourage different type of films and
Hmm.
different kind of it really push the envelope and tell the audience, especially the North American audience, animation is not for children. It's a
Hmm.
medium for any sort of any storytelling. And so she sat us down and said, "Guys, I think this is a bigger movie." And that's when we started to look for a partner for me, and we found Chris. And I think I don't know, it's hard. A lot of my director friends ask me, "How did you pull this off? How did you get away with so much in this film?" And I think it's because Christine was just such a huge champion of this from the beginning. And it was not only Christine, but also Spring Aspers, who's the president of Sony Music. She saw such huge potential in this just from the music standpoint. And they were just supportive in making this thing not kiddie, not for children, and just making it a bit more adult. We always called it like a hard PG-12.
Hmm. Right.
And one of the things Christine also told us too is she said, "Let's objectify the crap out of these guys
Hmm.
because we've
You
never
did.
we've never seen that before." And so,
Right.
we got
Yeah.
we
The
we got
abs.
tasked. Yes, we got
Finally.
tasked from the top, so we stuck to
That's my
that. And
son's favorite
oh,
demon was the
really?
abs guy. The abs.
Hmm.
What's his name?
My young daughter, who's 9 now, but she said he's weird.
Oh,
I was like,
that's funny. And Chris, when it gets to that number, obviously that's
Mm.
where the shove comes in movies. I know from many friends of mine who are involved.
Yeah, I think that part of I think one advantage we had is that the initial green light pitch was it was really ambitious. We're like, this is a movie that's about musical superheroes and it has original pop songs and they're all going to be legitimately great. And like we kind of described the movie as it has evolved, which is 9 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, 10 out of 10. But I think the promise of it was big enough that I think studios were like, well, if we're going to do this, we have to do it at a really high level and spend $100 million. And I think the other thing that I don't know, I think we had this conviction, which I find, I guess, a little frustrating to me that there's not more conviction in the studio system, which is the fact that this is Korean, that it's an original idea that is filled with crazy ideas, is a real asset. I like to say that this way: the rest of the world has been watching, um, American westerns for 100 years, and none of those people have ever been to Wyoming, and they don't know what a horse saddle gear is, but they figure it out. It's like they travel and they connect to the core human story that's being told. So we pitched this spectacular movie, but we also pitched all the things about shame and identity. And so having those two things in the oven, it made it able to reach a big audience, and it also gave the studio a sense that this could be working on these two levels.
But how do you get that, Maggie? As you said, this is your as we said, your directorial debut. Chris, you had one other film under your belt. You talked about wanting to make something new, but that isn't happening. I talked to really well-known filmmakers that have had lots of successes. And what has to change to get these original movies made? And I will note that the two movies that made, besides K-Pop Demon Hunters, in the theatrical was Weapons and Sinners, which were original movies, right?
Yeah.
Not the retreads didn't do as well. So what needs to change so others can get the original movies made? Each of you, just briefly.
I mean, I think the successes like we've had this year will help because it's like proof of concept that audiences want this stuff. And then I think it's, one of the hardest things, especially in animation, is to hold your courage because it goes long. It takes, in this case, 6, 7 years. And there are many opportunities within that to chicken out or to back down on the initial guts of the movie. So I think you need, as Maggie said, you need the support, like we had with Christine, of somebody who on the studio level will go to bat for it and be like, I'm advocating for this thing, even though it's different and weird and not something you've seen before. That is its strength. And I think if you have that, I don't know, it takes some courage, I think. And it's a personal, that I think that's the best way to explain it. It's like that conviction that Christine had was not driven by books about screenwriting or data about who wanted what. It was her own personal conviction that I'm moved by this. It's funny. I love the music. I love the story. And that you need people to act like humans in those roles and not just data
But
analysis.
It certainly can go the other way. Look, Heated Rivalry was rejected by everybody and idiotically because it was, sorry to say, a group of a certain kind of man who was like, why would I want gay? When in fact there was a huge fan base around that book series, which they wouldn't have known about. Maggie, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's scary. It's just scary to make these things, and I think I was scared so much, so many times making this movie and doing the comedy that we were doing, doing the drama that we were doing. But I think you just have to kind of push forward with that, and it's I don't know. I also think studios need to realize that I think especially with animation because the budgets are so big, they tend to kind of want to appeal to everybody, and when you do that, you appeal to no one.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so something like Heated Rivalry, it's a very targeted. For me, it was like Canadian, a gay love story. I'm in. Like that was
Right.
it felt like it was made for me,
Right.
but then it was made for people who were not both of those things.
Right.
So
Exactly. Who weren't fans of romantic
yes, and so
novels.
I truly believe, and like how the success of our movie
Mhm.
came to be, the core K-pop audience really embraced it. They talked about it endlessly on social media, and when you get the core audience that you are appealing to, then you have
Then it
then
goes
you can
outwards.
it can go outward. Yeah.
I would argue one of the big things was the story, right? And you were both have backgrounds as story artists, and the experience presumably was helpful. Beings. Can you explain what a story artist does and why that would be? Maggie, go ahead.
Oh, how much time do we have?
No, no,
Uh,
no, please.
So a story artist, as a story artist, you are kind of given assignments. It could be a moment in the movie, it could be an entire scene or a sequence, and it's your job to create images that will kind of tell the story of the scene. And we create what's called storyboards. And they're, for a sequence, it's anywhere between 100 to 500 if it's an action sequence. And you draw the movie the way you were kind of imagining it in your head in drawings. And so you are the first person to kind of determine what shot would go for that line of dialogue or that moment, the acting that the character does, and a lot of times the story artist is always also writing the scene, so you're coming up with moments, dialogue, jokes, and then we take those drawings and we edit them. We have a picture editor, and we lay in temp soundtracks, temp voices, temp sound effects, and we watch the entire movie in that form over and over again, doing iterations on that before it starts to move down the pipeline and become digital.
You've said your background as a story artist helped you keep control during the film's production. Was there a time when you felt you were at risk for losing control of the movie, and how did you rein it back in?
Ugh. A lot of dark times. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a cut of the movie where we were getting a lot of feedback, and we were addressing a lot of the notes and stuff that we were getting, and we screened it to a big live audience in Orange County. I think like 200 people. And it was okay. It wasn't awful. They still liked it, and I think our score was maybe like 6 out of 10 or 7. And afterwards, I asked Chris, like, did you like that movie? And he's like, no. And I was like, "Yeah, I didn't like it either." And we thought, from that moment, we just decided we're gonna make something, whether we sink or swim, we'll put something out that we love and we believe in. And if people don't like it, at least we know. We did our part, and it's what we wanted the movie to be. And so yeah, like that really told us that we just needed to rein things back to the way that we wanted and tell the story that we needed to tell.
Right. So one of the things, though, Chris, in a recent interview, you talked about how one of the challenges facing the animation world was how training opportunities have disappeared. You both lean heavily on your decades of experience writing, creating stories while making the film. Talk about the missing opportunities, what's lost, and especially because the other big existential threat for animation is AI, right? And a lot of it's slop. It's not always going to be slop. I keep telling that to Hollywood. They're like, "Oh, it's slop." I'm like, "Not forever, my friends." Chris, talk about this. How will the animation industry change over the next few years, or making of movies more broadly, especially with AI and the idea
Mm,
that people aren't trained anymore? Same thing that happens in journalism, by the way.
interesting. Yeah, I think it's a great parallel with journalism because what you see, and you would speak to this better than me, but there are centuries of institutional knowledge built up in terms of principles of how you operate as a journalism, with the goal of producing good journalism, which it contains the truth, hopefully, basically. And as you lose that, you have people partaking in journalism who don't have that education. They don't even know the mistakes they're making. They don't even realize the responsibilities that they have in their craft. And I think in animation, one of the struggles we've had is as it's gotten more decentralized and a lot of the big studios have become scattered around the world in terms of talent everywhere, there's great upsides to that. But the experience of storyboarding a sequence and the tradition in animation is you would storyboard a sequence and then you would pitch it live to a room of other story artists. So you'd get up there. It's the closest thing to really performing the movie. You're doing voices. You're seeing if your jokes land. You're pacing your scene to make sure it's keeping people hooked and not dragging. It's like a mini edit of the film.
But you're
Hmm.
also trying out jokes, so you're kind of a
Yeah,
stand-up
yeah.
comic.
Yeah.
It's the wind tunnel. You're building your little prototype and you put it in the wind tunnel and you see what kind of
Hmm.
shit falls
Good.
off.
That's
And
a
then you're
great
like,
metaphor.
yeah, revise. And so that culture of artists doing that has kind of gotten lost. It's a lot more remote now. And the artists, young story artists, are very talented, but a lot of them don't have what I would consider kind of a ruthless sense of how I'm using the audience's time, how I'm using this 1 minute, which will cost $1 million to produce. And so Maggie and I come from a background, like we got a lot of training at DreamWorks that really was like, better make sure whatever you're doing, drama or comedy or something in between, that you are making use of this time. And I think that we really bonded as writers about that. And it ties to the second half of your question, which is if your writing is purposeful, then you have a chance for your performance to be purposeful and your scene to be purposeful. And all of that um, gets farmed out to individual artists, and they all have to contribute. And it takes decades of experience for each of those departments to deliver, let's say, a character design, a 3D model of rig, which is the invisible bones that move the animation so you can actually move your character. All of those are people who've spent 10 or 12 years mastering those skills. So you have this chain of artistic experience, and all of them are asking the same question, which is like, what is this moment about? Why are we doing this shot? Why are we doing this scene? So I think that the tools of AI are going to evolve, and they're going to replace in a certain way, but I think it's still always going to go back to that intention of the storyteller and the artist.
Those certainly could, I do think Hollywood's lying to itself all the time because I think studios are using it a lot more, and I think screenwriters are using it a lot more than they
I'm
pretend
sure.
they are.
Yeah.
So Maggie, whether artists or actors like it or not, AI is here. Disney announced last year it's investing $1 billion in OpenAI and licensing its characters to companies, to OpenAI's company's video platform, Sora. A lot of pressure to cut costs, obviously. Do you think about it all? Because I think what's special about this movie, even though you use tons of technology, animation has always been at the forefront of technology. Movies have been at the forefront of special effects. Is it a net negative or is it, what's the boon that you see, if any?
You know, I it's so I've been on the film for 7 years. Well,
Mhm.
I'm still on the film, I guess, year 8.
Yeah.
And most of that time was spent in writing and
Mhm.
not producing the movie that we see now. So although
Mhm.
it's crazy that the, mo- m- the there's more work that isn't seen than it is seen.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, when it comes to AI, there's it's a tool, and I think that artists and the AI creators are just not talking to each other, and I think that the more that we communicate, we can find ways where these tools can be developed to help us get to our results quicker, and I can see places where that can be useful, but my relationship to my film is very complicated. There are times when I've hated it. There's times when
I bet.
it's a child. It's a
Yeah.
child that you're raising, and
Mhm.
for me, you don't get that with AI. You're not
Yeah.
like struggling with it and creating it and making it, forcing it into something, having it push back. There isn't that tension and that relationship that you're getting that in the creative process. So
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like I don't know, it's just that there's that
Which
relationship
Chris was
isn't
just
there.
talking about, this
Yes,
wind
and
tunnel
so and
resistance.
it's not gonna give you that, so it's not gonna reflect that
Yes.
ultimately in the product, so it's tricky, but I do
Well,
feel that yeah.
tech people often talk about lack of friction. They always
Mm.
think that's the best thing. And I'm always like, it ain't. It actually is the worst thing for creativity or even
Yes,
humanity. I just finished a
totally.
docuseries and I talked to someone about the effect on the human brain of chatbots. They're
Mhm.
Mhm.
frictionless, they're
Yeah,
seamless,
Yes.
they're sycophantic.
it's easy.
And
Mhm.
Yes.
lack of friction is not a great thing.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
And that's what both of you are talking about. So last two questions very quickly. One is business. Movies now are not just about movies and sales, and you've hit it out of the park on that. Um, Merchandise. I'm curious why there's no merchandise. I found 2 keychains in Korea in the airport of the bird and the tiger, and
Kara,
then
they're
this.
loading the
This I just
cannon.
found.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is a ramen spicy noodles, with, Zoe on it because my kids love Zoe. It has Netflix on it. Talk a little bit about this part of the business because, like, you see frozen I have frozen, mozzarella sticks,
Yeah.
frozen mozzarella sticks. I every time I see some frozen thing, I text, and I have to buy them, I text Bob Iger and say, "Fuck you," like, once again. But what happened here? Because that's a huge business for you, which also helps you make what you wanna make.
I think currently they are frantically loading the cannon of merch to fire it soon. So there's
Okay.
there's so much lead time involved with that, and because
Yeah.
the movie was
But
a
you didn't think you'd
surprise.
need the merch.
Yeah, there
Yes.
was no plan
There's no plan.
they didn't know what they were getting, so there was no preparedness to capitalize on it. But it's
Right.
also one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is just different IPs are different in their fan base, especially in that core audience, in the sense of genuineness.
Mhm.
And we feel like our core audience are older. They're really rooted in K-pop, and they're
Mhm.
rooted in
Of
anime.
which there's lots of merch, by the way.
Yeah, and there's lots of merch there. They're also like they are different. The Frozen audience, which are 6-year-olds, you can't create too much merch. You can't oversaturate a 6-year-old. Like my son, you
Oh,
know, he,
really?
he could wear F1 underwear and drive to school in an F1 car and like watch F1. It's not possible. There's no cynicism. There's no like selling
Yeah.
out. But
Right.
with our audience, we feel like it does have to be more careful because, K-pop Demon Hunters frozen fish fillets. I'm not sure
I
that
get
core
it.
audience
I'm hoping you don't do
will
that. But
turn on them. So yeah, there's more
one
cultivating it, I
T-shirt
think.
would be nice. Like one
They're
outfit would
there.
be great.
Dude,
What?
we have
We'll get
T-shirts.
you one,
Yeah, we'll get
Kara.
you one.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
We'll
I'm teasing you. But it's really funny because this has now become a big part of entertainment is the whole 360. And I
Yeah.
was struck by how little there was no merch, right? There's tons
Yeah.
of Barbie merch. Obviously,
The same
Frozen's
thing happened
insane.
with Star Wars. When
Star
they
Wars.
released that movie, there was no merch. They
No
were selling
merch.
empty
Yeah.
boxes, right?
Yeah, now
So,
there's too much merch of that. You're
yes.
right. So naturally, speaking of you do have an enormous. You've all been to kids' parties recently, correct?
Yes.
You can only listen to Taylor Swift and Golden and K-pop Demon. Just that is it. That's the entire experience of anyone with children between 4 and I would say adults, all through the adults, everybody. So naturally, a sequel is already in the works, but Sony Pictures Animation says it may not be ready till 2030, which brings us to our second expert question. This is from my 6-year-old daughter, Clara.
Is the same K-pop Demon Hunters gonna be in K-pop Demon Hunter 2, or is it gonna be different hunt?
She was very shy.
Oh my God.
She loves
Oh
you
my
so, just so you know. She's
God.
never
Wow.
met you.
That's a good
So-
question.
Tell us about the
Yeah.
sequel. Different hunters, new hunters, anything you could tell us.
Oh,
Oh, nothing.
we
Oh.
should be better at dodging this question by now. We're so bad.
We're so bad at it.
Honestly, we've been it's been a crazy 9 months of
Yes, I'd imagine.
campaigning, etc. So it's now we can see it on the horizon, and our brains are starting to really dig into it. But
Right.
I
right.
think the nice thing is the first movie was made, honestly, blessedly devoid of the sort of sense that it needed to be for everybody. And
Mhm.
so we made a movie that we loved, that made sense to us, that we felt would resonate with a certain fan base. And I think we just have to follow the same personal
Absolutely.
approach, because and we'll just try to protect it from all of those outside expectations and categories of
Yeah.
data and stuff, because I don't think it helps all that much.
Oh, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
And don't let them talk to you like that at the Vanity Fair Oscar party afterwards. Maggie, you get they do that. People do that to me all the time whenever I made meet. Let me tell you what you should do next year. I'm like, get the fuck away from me. Like, move along. But you shall not tell me. Get the fuck away from me does a lot of work, just so you know. Maggie, you get the last word on this. You don't have to answer that question for her at all, but thinking about what's next.
Same. I think this movie was very scary to put out, and we put all we got into it. And but there's more. There's more. We
Yep.
could take it further, and
Mhm.
I think we're gonna push it a lot further than we did with this one. And it's kind of given me the courage to do that.
Yeah.
The reception to this.
Yeah. Remember, Godfather 2 was the better movie.
Yes.
We won't speak of Godfather 3. None of us will. But Godfather 2 was the classic, and so you never know. Anyway, what a great, an amazing thing you've done here. It's really beautiful. It's actually
Thank
a really
you.
beautiful
Thank
movie, and it's inspirational. It's funny.
How do we get Scott to watch it? Do we just tell
I
him
don't know.
let's tell him everyone's hot? That'll work, right? because everyone's hot. So watch it, Galloway.
Listen,
Do
I
it.
just got him to watch Heated Rivalry.
Ooh.
So I know it took a bit, but I finally got him. I am going to make, when I'm with him at South by Southwest, I'm going to go to his room and we're going to watch it. He and I will have to cuddle with him, but that's if it takes, that's what it takes. I'm going to do that. So I promise I will get him to watch it and I will
Amazing.
give him an edible and I'll put him right in front of it. And that's how it's going to go. All right. Maybe a squishmallow, something like that. Anyway, I really appreciate it. I love your work and I'm excited for whatever you guys do next. And you have to win the Oscar or I will have some issues. And I promise I will scream about it on Pivot too. Anyway,
Awesome.
thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Kara. It's
Thank
really
you,
fun.
Kara.
Today's show was produced by Christian Castro-Russell, Michelle Alloy, Megan Burney, and Kaylin Lynch. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer of podcasts. Special thanks to Catherine Barner, and our theme music is by Trackademics. If you're already subscribed to the show, you're slaying demons and you're golden. If not, you're my soda pop. Thanks for watching. See you on Thursday.